Interruptions notices.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I am joined by the Pink Starlights, who are being brought to us today by Lindsey Eastburn. She is an author and board certified hypnotherapist. She has been helping people globally in their pre-pregnancy and pregnancy journeys through her private practice, books, and training facility, HypnoFertility International. She has been doing this work for well over 20 years and I am super, super excited to talk with you today. Lindsey, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for having me. We've been having so much fun already and we haven't even started yet.
I know. I connected with Lindsey and I was like, oh, like everything was just like, I love her bookshelf. I love everything about her. So the first thing I want to jump into before we get to the Pink Starlights, which really is, I'm so excited to talk about the Pink Starlights. But first, for anyone who doesn't know, what is hypnofertility?
Okay, so hypnofertility is basically hypnosis to promote fertility. And I was in the field of hypnosis back in the late 90s. And right around 2000, women started coming in to ask if I could help with fertility. And in some cases, it was needle phobias, because if you have to do something like IVF, you definitely can't have issues with needles. And hypnosis is really well known for helping with those kind of
Yeah.
things. And then women were told that they had a 0% chance, or less than 1%, which may as well be zero, of
Yeah.
ever having a baby. And they came in to see me for various reasons to see if I could help. And we started having all of these babies coming in that were supposed to be impossible. And these women would say to me, I feel like there's a baby there. And I would say, yeah, I agree. I believe you. Let's work from there. And I tell you, I will put my money on any woman's sensations or gut feeling or knowing that she's got a baby there over, I don't care what what else it is.
Yeah.
And that's how we got these. It was funny because the medical community started calling them anecdotal, as people kept going in and saying, Lindsey, help me with this baby. And they're
Mhm.
like, okay. And then, hundreds of babies later, they're like, well, okay.
Guys, I have proof to what I do.
So
Here's a
yeah,
baby.
so exactly. So there was no hypnosis for fertility at the time. And it's not to say nobody ever used it, because any good hypnotherapist, if you go see them and ask them to help with whatever it is, should be able to do that. Um,
Absolutely.
but it decided to become a specialty for me. And I've always been tuned into babies since I was a little kid,
Yeah.
and always concerned that women who would love and really wanted babies would have them.
Hmm.
It really bothered me for people who were struggling, and even back in the 70s. And yeah, so I was like, okay, this is my thing. And I said yes. I feel like the universe brings you things, and you can say yes or you can say no. And sometimes if you don't say yes, he'll just keep dropping it on you. And I told my
Gets
son
louder
that one
and
time.
louder.
Yeah, my son was about 18 or 19, and I said, the universe is talking to you, and if you don't listen, it's going to drop a boulder on you. And he calls me one day and he says, Mom, I totaled my car. Do you think that's a boulder? And I'm like, yeah, that's a boulder. And
Nah.
fortunately, they let you come out of it fine. But yes, that would be a boulder.
Wow.
And he's 33 now. But that was so funny because he was at that age and don't listen to parents and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I knew right away. It was like, oh yes, this is important. So I started developing, I didn't even do it intentionally, but in working with so many people, I
Hmm.
ended up developing a program that, over the years I've just refined it, and it's evolved, and it's just works. It works. And so that's where I called it hypnofertility. That's how that
Yeah.
happened.
And is that the three keys hypnofertility?
Yeah, I added the three keys aspect in terms of pulling in the three keys to conception, which I received in meditation before I brought in my second son, who showed up as a spirit baby to tell me that I needed to bring him in because I wasn't supposed to have this second child. And so it's really funny because it kind of started in 2000 in the hypnotherapy practice, but it kicks back into my childhood. It kicks back into my son. And it's
Yeah.
funny because it was in Georgia, and we were talking about having both lived in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's where I took this training. I was working with crystals and meditation and so forth, and was doing some meditation, and we connected with our guides, and that's what my guide brought through was three keys, which I later figured out were to conception, though they really work for all of life.
Yeah. I mean,
And yeah,
when I read your the three keys, it's listen, meditate, and trust. I mean, I feel like that can be applied to really anything, like you just said, like
yeah.
tuning in and really being able to kind of, get the answer through meditation and then trusting whatever's coming forward for you.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. And that was one of the things with hypnofertility. There was no such thing, especially, in terms of anyone doing it professionally.
Sure.
So I called it that, but then eventually, of course, all the ideas are in the collective. And then all of a sudden we've got generic hypnofertility all over the place. And not is a lot of it not even having to do with hypnosis in many ways. So that's why I kind of decided I would qualify it with the
Yeah.
three keys, just so people knew if they trained or worked with somebody, not trained with because I'm the only one that does trainings, but worked with somebody so they would know it was me
So
or
you
not,
actually
right?
offer this as a certification program
Yeah,
for anybody that's interested. Oh,
yeah,
fascinating. And how long of a
yeah.
program is that?
So it ends up being about 15 hours online.
Okay.
It's an advanced program for
Sure.
hypnotherapists.
So they
So
already need to be certified in
yeah,
hypnotherapy. Okay.
yeah. So then we go into that, and then I do have a three keys birth process, and the Pink Starlights are having me develop. Yeah, I do work with kids like these spirit babies on the other side of being spirit babies, but now they want me to have a program for that. So
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Yes, ma'am. All right. So let's take a step back. So I, like you, work with a lot of guides, teams. I work with a lot of angels. So I find it fascinating that you're bringing in the pink starlights. So my friend, can you please jump into the pink starlights? Because I know they want to take the show. So let's go.
they are my bosses. Yeah, they're the ones that are like getting our message out there, and that's why I named the book "Waiting in the Wings: Introducing the
Oh,
Pink Starlights."
what a beautiful name. I love
And
that.
they gave me the name, and it's really funny because I didn't make the second connection. I got the waiting in the wings, they're waiting to come in, but one of my clients said, "Oh, angel wings." They're in the angel wings. I'm like, "Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah."
Sometimes we have to be hit on the head, guys.
Was they talk, you think we talk fast, they talk fast, and they dump all this information into my head.
Yeah.
And it's so much. It's just it's really funny. So it's really evolved. And when I started working with, fertility clients,
Hmm.
there was that whole spirit baby aspect of people,
Mm,
even if they didn't know what that was, but they'd say, I just know there's a baby there.
yeah.
And by the second book that you mentioned, Three Keys to Conception, which
Hmm.
actually named the book, um, it was evolving to bring in more divine feminine. And I mean, I've always been in harmony with that,
Hmm.
but it was like, let's go more spiritual with
Mm,
this. And I've been walking both sides because I work with medical clinics, I work with
yeah.
that side of it, but then there's also that spiritual side. And it's interesting because when I got started, the clinics were very clinical. That was their focus. And now you're seeing them more and more and more bring in holistic, if you will, or complementary
Yeah,
modalities, whatever
absolutely.
you want to call that. And a lot of them will send people to me
Hmm.
when what works or should work doesn't.
Hmm.
And that's what they'll say. They've done 5 protocols and I don't know why this isn't working. Go see Lindsey. and so
But
and so
thank
then
goodness that they're open
yeah,
to now. It's like, yeah, before it was very Western medicine. And if it didn't work,
right.
then you weren't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be.
Exactly.
But please go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And that's where I felt like I was really guided to bring hypnofertility
Yeah.
to the world so that women knew they had this other option because
Hmm.
nobody knew that. And
Hmm.
and it's limited, or especially then it was much more limited to what they could do. So then that book comes along, and you're right, the three keys: meditate, listen, trust. And I ended up sectioning the book that way.
Smart.
And meditate doesn't necessarily have to be formal meditation. So it can be, all those other things: walking in nature,
Yeah.
grounding,
Yeah.
mindfulness, hypnosis, all of that. And I'm like, great, I got this book. I love this book. I'm good to go. No more book writing. And and,
I don't know why I'm
and then
laughing, but it's just
I
so
know,
funny to me.
right? I love English, as you can see by my, bookcase that I'm reading and
Yeah.
and writing. I'm good at it, but it's a lot for me to do. And it's that perfectionism thing, I think, that comes through, right? So I was so pleased with that book. I'm like, good to go. And then they come along in 2016. I start getting this information that they didn't care what kind of spirit babies they were. Up until then, I worked with all of them because we know the indigos and the crystals and so forth.
Of course.
Yeah. And so then, and I just wasn't, it just didn't matter who I was working with. It was just like the spirit babies or the babies that I was bringing through. So then they're like, okay, we're new. We're bringing in a different message. We're part of working with these others.
Yeah.
And we need you to now get our message out there. And I didn't even have a name for them at first. And it was funny because I was talking with a friend of mine also who I met in Georgia and is still there. And she's, she does a lot of that. She's got a shop and she does all sorts of this really cool witchy stuff that we love.
Nice.
And so she hears rather than I get these dumps into my head, like claircognizance, right? She hears them. So we were talking and they started yik-yakking to her as well as me. And it was funny because they started kind of bossing her around, and I joke around that they're bossy, but they have a mission, and they had her make a special essential oil fragrance for them that they wanted, and a tea, actually, and she's an herbalist. And she's like, I don't even know what this stuff is. I don't know if it's poison. I got to research it. No, not poison. Perfect blend. Amazing.
Wow.
It's really funny. And that's where this started to come through even stronger between the two of us, because whenever we're together, it's like it accelerates or raises things. Oh my gosh. And so then I don't know, I can't remember exactly, a couple of weeks or so, I got their name. We're the Pink Starlights, and they were having me take clients to a pink star.
Ooh, I love that. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Oh no, another one.
I'm having a moment because when I take people for when I do sacred soul alignments, you take them to the pink ray of compassion. That's interesting.
That's amazing. I have to write that down. It's so, and I love that because it's not like I went out researching all this stuff. It's like they were telling me stuff and then I would find out. In fact, I recently found out, and I don't know if you know this, but there is a pink star rose quartz.
No, I'm going to text my friend who owns a crystal shop and say, please get me the pink star rose quartz.
Right. And I just went into a shop I found downtown right in here where I am. And because I was trying to get one online, and the people, they sent me a sphere, but it's definitely not a pink star quartz. It's a rose quartz, but it's not the star one. And you can see the star in the quartz. So, and I was like, I had no idea of this. And I took like crystal certification many years ago.
Same. Yeah. I'm a certified crystal healer myself.
Oh my gosh. Oh, of course you are.
We have a lot in common, we realized before we started this podcast episode.
Oh my gosh, it's just too funny. Yeah. So I was looking, I think I don't know what I was looking for, but somehow it came up. There's also a pink star plant. So I had to order that. And,
of course.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Holy smokes, guys. So so then they were having me go to the pink star, and there's a goddess there.
Ooh.
Known as the pink star goddess.
I love her. I love her.
Or the queen of the pink star sometimes, and they like to hang out there, and it's all unconditional love. So when you get to that star, it's pink, and it's shades of pink beyond what you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And everything's pink, like mountains, streams, forest, whatever is there is pink. And then she has a castle, and she takes my clients. I always go to, though, in my mind, I can't help it, to tea. And they have tea in her Victorian-like tea room that is pinks of every shade. And it's just fascinating for me. And then the first time that I went there, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And then more and more evolved. And that was before I knew they were called the Pink Starlights.
Right.
And they would hang out there with her because they just love that. And they're about that unconditional love, which of course all babies are, but that's just, part of they're bringing in an energy to help us align beyond what we ever have before, and for healing the earth, and to help align divine feminine and sacred masculine, because we are so out of balance with that. And we're seeing like almost craziness in the world. It feels like it's kind of cracking.
Yes. It's very much a tipping point. It's a tipping point, it feels like.
It is, absolutely. And so we need them, and they're coming through to help us. And, the indigos came along and kind of paved the way, and the crystals brought in some amazing energies. And if you look over the last 30 years or so, and a little beyond that before that, but in my awareness is the last 30 years or so, you saw it with the age of Aquarius and the make love not war stuff that started coming in the 60s, and that's kind of where they were mostly beginning their work. This is fascinating. And so they're building on that.
So why do you feel like we need the pink starlights now?
So we need to raise the planet. Like, we've really abused her. And, we have just, taken and taken and taken, and we have poisoned and poisoned. And I have to say things 3 times, I guess, poisoned. And we have this oppression going on, and we've had this patriarchy, and this is not against men, but that out of balance male masculine energies. Right. And it's cracking or crashing, but it's holding on for dear life.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And there's such an oppression and volatility that's going on. And so they're coming through, and I say they're coming through to be the people. Now, obviously we're all the people when we get here, but they're going to be the ones holding these positions in a few years. They're going to be the ones in charge of, the environmental department, in charge of, children and food and things like that. So they're helping us to shift. And also the higher energy or vibration that's coming through. Our energy is dense. It's denser here. It has been lightening up, because we could never have done this if you think 100 years ago, like,
no way.
No way. No. And so it's like, okay, so they're helping us to lighten the energies. In a sense, it's bottlenecking. So much energy is coming through. And I always say my clients, because my clients typically have a really rough road with fertility, like years of trying to conceive, 9 failed IVFs, 4 clinics, whatever, 5 miscarriages, things like that. And then the pink starlights made it clear that this was like it is an initiation, and they need their moms and dads, especially their moms, because they anchor in, especially usually to their moms. Right. And they need us to be able to handle this level of stuff. Like, we need to be doing our own work. Right. We can't just do our own work, because it's always a work in progress, but we need to be in it or willing to do it. Right. And we need to be open to things like this podcast, or to crystals. If your little kid, says, "Mommy, at 2 years old or 3 years old, I need to have a crystal."
So true.
You need to get it.
Absolutely.
And you need to at least be willing to investigate it. If they say they want to swim to the bottom of the ocean and they're 2 or 3, you might want to, consider it, but negotiate on, we'll get to that, at a certain time, kind of thing. But yeah, we need to be, not just say, "Oh, that's ridiculous. So that's silly."
It's so true. Yes, we need to have an energy and a space for the kids that are currently coming in to be able to be open, because they're bringing in a higher consciousness, a higher vibration, a new way of thinking. And I feel like these pink starlights are helping them come forward. And as parents, we need to be like, okay, meet you where you're at,
Exactly. We can't have, the ones that indigos usually came into difficulty, trauma, rough time, people who are basically asleep, if you will. I call them 5 o'clock world people. They kind of don't see anything beyond 9 to 5.
That they've got their shutters on.
Yeah, exactly. And so they don't have time for that. They're bringing this energy in, and people may be spiritual, or they maybe they have a crystal certification or something like that, but they may need more. And if they not gone through the infertility struggle, they would, maybe in some cases have kids and take them, for granted, or not be as open. And this leads people to, look into all of these other things.
I mean, if somebody, just for what you just said, and somebody's going through, it's a struggle, it's a process. They've had these failed IVF rounds, they've had failed, doctors saying you have a 1% chance, which in their mind is like, it's never going to happen. And it breaks them down to their core. And then as a spiritual person, we're taught to go within, to connect with divine, connect with, but a lot of people, I think, look for external,
Yeah.
because they may not have like a mentor or a guide, or maybe because of society or whatnot. And I love the fact that you're able to kind of bring them back to their core, get into the essence, because like you said, and it's the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I do readings and sessions. I do Akashic record readings and stuff like that. And I feel that baby soul, and you just know it, like they're there and they're like trying to jump in, like, hey, and you're like, there's a baby. Like it's a very like, it's an interesting conversation to have. Like it's just, and you feel that baby soul and they're trying to come in. And I love the fact that you validate the mother and their
Mhm.
feelings, and like, no, let me help you. Let's go through this process together. Let's guide you. Let's bring in the divine feminine. Let's bring in the pink starlights. I just think that's so cool. I just think it's so
It's
cool
so
to break
huge
it
to be
down.
validated, just to be validated. And if you think
Yeah.
about it, that Western medicine is that masculine, more of
Yeah.
an aggressive energy. And in fertility, with the fertility stuff, they're really it's time sensitive. And so
Yes.
depending on, I don't feel the same way about age as you'll see out there more. So I
Mm.
work with that differently. But I know that that's an issue. So people are
Yeah.
really, I'd say sometimes I dehypnotize people because there's like belief systems around
Oh,
some
I
of
like to
that.
disconnect from the aging matrix, my friend.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's so huge. So, um, in that Western side, of course, and I'm all about science. And like I say, I walk both sides, science and
Yeah.
spirit, I call it. And they want absolutes though, or they want either looking for that. That's what that's about. And, there's always statistics tell you what a group of people is likely to do
Mm.
in a situation, not what one person's experience is going to be.
Right.
And so I like to keep that. I like to work from that and just validating that with people, or letting them know that,
Mm-hmm.
because they can get blocked right away as soon as they hear that or think that in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And so and a lot of my clients are type A's, if you will, or perfectionists or doers, achievers.
Yeah.
And that's pulling in more masculine energy to do that.
Mm.
And again, it's not male, female, but we all have those energies.
Of course.
And, they're archetypically or archetypally, however you want to pronounce that, associated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gods and goddesses,
Yeah.
warriors and nurses and healers and teachers and all of that kind of thing. And they may be more masculine to more feminine energy. So you look at a nurse, for example, because I know you're very familiar with that. And I give this example in the Pink Starlight book where it's like a nurse is going to be of that feminine energy, but
Mm.
a nurse who's able to manage a busy emergency room, or something like that is channeling masculine as well. And I even give the example when I go through this, I'm like, well, and what did you affiliate in terms of that nurse, male or female? Because we tend to
Oh,
go female with nurses, but it could be a male nurse. And they're bringing through this nurturing and this caring and this kindness. And then at
yeah.
the same time, they are navigating,
Right.
a system and busyness and all of this kind of thing. So that's where we have our balance, you
That
know?
is interesting. I feel like you wrote part of this book about me. I am a nurse who runs a very busy doctor's office.
Uh-huh. Well, now go back to the book and edit it and I'll put your name in there.
Like Rachel? No, just kidding. But that's very interesting because as a nurse, it is a very feminine, caring, compassionate energy, but as somebody who manages an office, it's very masculine, and it is kind of domineering. And for me, as being a spiritual person, like you said, you're writing the line between science and spirituality, which is something
Mhm.
that I do as well on a day-to-day basis. It's like, okay, Western medicine tends to just slap meds on things,
Yeah.
and it's like we don't get to the mind, body, soul connection, which is, I kind of feel like, and probably the same thing for you. Like I felt really called to go into my spiritual nature because I'm like, this can't just be it.
Yeah.
I don't, like I need to reconnect to Mother Earth. I need to reconnect to having a healthier diet, warm light, sunshine, exercise, and here we are, we're like, oh, here's Ozempic because you're obese and you have diabetes. And
Yeah.
it's like, are we really getting the root cause issue here? Which is another thing that you do, is that you're able to help people alter negative subconscious thoughts into positive ones. And we all have loops that run around in our mind of I'm not worthy of love, I'm not enough, blah, cancel, like if that, but you know what I mean? And I really respect the fact that you dive in and you're able to kind of help your clients, like, okay, let's shift this mindset. Let's really make you more empowered to bring that baby soul in.
Right, because it reinforces, whatever we're putting our emphasis on we're going to get more of it, whether or not it's what we want.
Ooh, yes,
So that's
amen.
really
Victim
huge.
mindset, or oh, woe is me, and my life is, well, let's talk about your son and getting the messages from the universe. And if you're not going to listen to the messages, you're going to get a boulder on your car.
Yeah, exactly. It's so many directions to go with what you just
I know,
said.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's amazing, but it's like, excuse me, if you see healer helper type of person,
Yeah.
we can easily get depleted, put everyone else first. So this is going to be feminine energy that's not balanced, that's not healthy. If we see somebody who's climbing the corporate ladder and it's at the expense of everything else, and they're working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the phone is always with them, and that's your masculine out of balance. It doesn't matter if a person's male or female, it is that energy that's out of balance. So that's part of what needs to happen. And this is what's messing up our whole planet and everything else is this out of balance. Like, all of the taking all the resources, that's masculine out of balance.
You're
Right.
right. It's like taking, I don't know about you, and it sounds like this is probably something you're already doing. I'm feeling a real call to kind of be very balanced between masculine and feminine, and honor the feminine within. And like you're type A, perfectionism, that it's an interesting shift to kind of, it's okay, I can have grace, surrender, ease, and integrate that in with this energy, and
Exactly.
it's been a challenge. And but I really, I feel like, especially right now in this day and age in 2023, like there's a real call to kind of, really shift into the softness, going back to Mother Earth, and really truly being open to the pink starlights. Stars, yeah, starlights.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like from a scientific standpoint or an evolutionary standpoint, we have a negativity bias in the brain. It's easier for us to think negatively than positively.
Well, that's no
because it's a
fun.
survival thing, and I give the same example all the time, but it's so much better to think that a stick is a snake than that a snake is a stick. Because if you are you're looking for a stick, but you see one and you just go, oh, I think that's a snake, you check it out, right? First. But if you see a snake, you go, oh, there's a stick I want, you grab it, and you just picked up a snake. And depending on the kind of snake,
Right.
So this is like survival, and this is keeping the species going, right? But that works in a lot of other ways too in the brain. So hypnosis helps to create new neural pathways in the brain, or at least rewire some of those.
So one thing I want to ask you, you've been doing this a long time. And I know that as a child, you really identified with, with babies and really wanting to help children and things like that. How did you lead into hypnosis? Like what kind of led you to, I want to do hypnosis?
Yeah. It's funny too, because, I was always I just call it the healing arts, but, when I was a little
same.
kid, I remember watching like Phil Donahue and Merv Griffin and stuff, and watching Uri Geller on there bending his spoons, or I knew all about reflexology and numerology and all of that when I was a little kid, and dreams. That was also an interest. So eventually, I was always open to that. And eventually when I ended up in Georgia, it was really funny because I got transferred from Canada. It was almost like the universe had picked me up and dropped me there. I didn't even know what hit me. And I had been in a nice spiritual group in Canada. And so all of a sudden I'm like free falling. And, I was looking for something, and I found this woman she had a call it crystal enlightenment or crystal enhancement, I think, workshop. And it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but I found it in, I think it was called the Aquarius, that magazine that was there.
Yeah.
And her ad showed up twice. And so I called her, And, as soon as I started talking to her, this heat was running up and down my spine. And I was, of course, looking for
Ooh.
synchronicities, which all of us
Yeah.
do in our,
Yeah.
the way that we navigate the world. And so I talked to her, and she was starting that Friday night.
Mhm.
And so I went, and she did, besides crystals, there was like meditation and connecting with your guides and psychometry and different things.
Yeah.
And so while I was working with her, and she kind of, became one of my friends because I didn't know anybody at all
Yeah.
there. And she had Reiki training dropped in front of her.
Oh my goodness.
And so this is like 1990, probably 93 into 94 now.
Mhm.
And so she's telling me about Reiki. I'm like, I need to do Reiki. And so still I'm being guided by this spirit baby that is my son, who has decided he's coming through and this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so I did the Reiki training and ended up getting my Reiki master teacher alignment or attunement when I was pregnant with Dylan. And so he
Aw.
came through as this Reiki master with that energy,
I love
which
that.
of course, this is what's, setting the stage for what's going on
Right.
now on a much larger
Yeah.
scale. So I did the Reiki training, and then, guided meditation in some ways. It's a piece of hypnosis. It's not all
Mhm.
all the methods, but it's a piece.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, maybe I should do hypnosis. Well, suddenly the universe tells me I have to go to Chicago, change my life, uproot everything, go to Chicago, find the magazine. I forget which one it was, but every area has, well, I don't know
Yeah.
if everybody has magazines anymore, but they did. And
Yeah.
there's the hypnosis training right on the back, and that's what I was looking for on the back of the magazine. So I call and I end up there, and it's funny, the woman that answered the phone, Marilyn, I thought, how do you get to work at a hypnosis school? How cool is that? Well, come to find out, she's they're a couple,
Yeah.
and so he was the instructor and she was running everything. But
Oh my goodness.
I just thought, I just had this instant envy, like, how do you get to work in doing this? Like, wow. And so
That's
I
so
did that
cool.
training, and the
Mhm.
first hour, it was like, this is what I need to do. I did it to
Ooh.
enhance my Reiki because I used to
Yeah.
teach Reiki and do Reiki stuff. And then it was like, oh my gosh, it has to go here. So what it ended up with is Reiki backing up or guiding me through the hypnotherapy aspect.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. And I started working with the school.
Mhm.
I mean, I wouldn't, I was like, to my instructor, Art, I was like, I want to help you. I want to work with you. I'm going to help you teach. He goes, well, I don't use TAs, right? I said, well, I'm going to be there. So give me something to do. And so followed him around and, learned everything.
I love it.
And
Like, well,
then
you are.
right. It's just how I am. And him and his wife, he and his wife invited me to go to a conference, a National Guild of Hypnotists.
Ooh.
That's an annual conference, and
Yeah.
they invited me to go. And here I had gotten divorced and all these other things are going on. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus on my kids and my
Yeah.
career, and end up there, meet my husband, who is a hypnotherapist and instructor in practice in Denver.
I freaking love this.
And it's all Carolyn Mace type of stuff with the
Yes.
energy, how we keep meeting and
Yes.
we keep running into
Yes.
each other. And I'm totally like, I'm so focused on my career and my kids, I don't even
Yeah.
notice.
Yeah.
And then he, so when we left, I'm like, I offer my hand, nice to meet you, maybe see you next year. And he's like, or you could come to Denver for a visit. And, all of that. Well, Denver is a hub for fertility clinics and for infertility.
I did not know that.
So two of the biggest clinics were right here in Denver that were in the US and in the world. I had to be here.
I have chills.
And so here I meet my husband, and we kind of talked about, well, he can move to Chicago or I can move to Denver. And we're kind of like, Denver has mountains and Chicago has god awful traffic. So that settled that. And so I came out here and everything just flowed. And that's when I joined his practice, and almost immediately. So we got married in 99, and I came out here in November. And so it was like immediately into the next year that these people started coming through. And there's a lot of like the clinics. Oh my gosh, there's some amazing clinics, but these two were kind of cutting edge at that time.
Yeah.
And so of course the universe says, well, you have to be where there is,
Yeah.
this focus on, infertility or fertility, pregnancy, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. This is where you need to be, because if you're anywhere else, this might take more time, and it's time. And when something realizes
Oh.
it's time, it's time.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I love my husband and we have other things in common.
Of course.
He wasn't just the tool to get me to Denver. That happens too, though, with the universe sometimes.
It does. It does. And what I want to say is that one, like you really have really tuned in to like your intuitive self and really listening to what I like to call like, I guess, signs, whispers of divine. And
Yes.
is that something that you've always been guided to like, okay, I know this is something I need to do, or is it something that you had to kind of lean more into and start to really trust?
It's always been something.
Nice.
And I always felt like I didn't belong. And you hear this from empaths and intuitives
So
and
true.
anybody who's, healers, that we feel like we didn't belong. And
So
when
true.
I was 4 or 5 years old and I was sitting outside on the steps in front of my house and just sitting there. And my dad came out and he said, "What are you doing? Like, I've been watching you through the window. You've just been sitting here." I'm waiting for my people. Because what do you mean you're waiting for your people? I said, "I'm waiting for my people." And he just kind of shook his head and laughed. See, this is the parents of that we can't have for pink starlights. We need to go,
It's
"Oh,
so
your
true.
people. So tell me about them."
So true. It's so
Right?
true because for me and for you, it sounds, I mean, my parents, no, I would have been put into counseling or so, even now, like even
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But with my sons, I have two sons. It's like, oh no, here, try this. Here's this crystal. I remember my son was, actually, it was
Yeah.
a couple years ago before COVID, and he was uncomfortable at school. I'm like, here, carry this bronzite. It will help you not to take things personally, And it's like,
Yep.
I mean, he makes fun of me now. He's like, oh, you're doing your third eye chakra healing powers.
I
And I'm
know.
like, Brayton. And but if you hear him talk, he's like, no, I just have a positive mindset. I know it's gonna work out. I know that it's gonna be okay. And I'm like,
Right. Right. Right.
but for
Well, they have,
us,
yeah.
institutionalized.
And of course, I have 2 boys also.
Oh my God. Of course you do.
Of course I do. And it's funny because, well, my younger one, he's the one that came through. He was the spirit baby first, and he remembers that and he talks about it still. He's 28.
Love that.
And my older one, he had to be a little bit more,
Yeah.
what can we call it? Just doubtful, let's say. But I was a great mom to have at that time because Harry Potter was a big deal. And so I
Ooh.
was like this Harry Potter type
Yeah.
mom, like stuff like that went on in my house kind of
Yeah.
thing. The kids would hang out at my house. But now I forgot where I was going with that because we have so many things going all over the place here with these babies,
But
and they're like, get back on track.
but it's like, no, it's like having space, as I do feel like as parents now. And I do think that some of us are very much open and allowing our kids to have the experiences and to have the journeys in which they need to have. I do feel like there is another sect of people that are very like rigid still, and it's going to be curious to see how they kind of grow up and how they evolve. So I just
Exactly.
find that interesting, but I respect so many more people I'm meeting now are like, oh yeah, my kid really loves crystals, or they have their spirit guides and they talk to their team, and oh, even like they may see spirit and they're not comfortable with it. Well, let's help you. Let's show you how to help with seeing maybe a ghost, because ghosts are just people too, and it may be scary to you, but let's manage that and let's help you with that, so it's not as scary. So I respect people that, because they're the ones, like you said, they're going to be taking over the environmental causes and the government and hopefully gun control. And off topic. But
Right. And flipping things because, up until recently, I don't know the exact percentage. There's probably 95% of people who are real 5 o'clock world. And that's shifting so much. And it's going to flip so that most people are going to be open to this type of thing. And other people are, there's going to be fewer of those that are kind of more influential, because there's people that I just want a job. I'm going to work 9 to 5. I come home, I have a beer, I watch my show. The weekend, I mow the grass or I do the laundry, and that's fine. That's where they're at.
Yeah, and it's okay.
And then that's what it was more so. Yeah. And now there's going to be those changes.
It's very masculine, traditional expectations, and now with the divine feminine rising, it's becoming a whole different ball game. That's how it feels like to me. It's a whole different ball game.
It totally is. And my husband always runs either the Smithsonian Channel or the History Channel in the mornings. And so I'll sometimes hear stuff in it. And sometimes they'll have those industry things, or the food that built America, things like that. And they were talking about some of the appliances that were being built. And then all these women there's all the commercials with them getting them for Christmas, right? The toaster and the washing machine or whatever else they had. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's such a perfect example, because it is that creating the feminine energy, but bringing it out and mass producing it, that's going to be masculine. And then there's that out of balance where the women are getting appliances and they're happy about it, because this is going to make your housework easier. And don't you be thinking about going out and doing anything else, right?
Yeah. The expectation of you being a person that manages the home.
Yeah.
And now it's interesting to see how we have unrealistic expectations on a woman that run a home, run the family, but also have a full-time career and. So it's interesting to see these stereotypes breaking down as well.
Oh, no, you're right too. And that's exactly it. We went from managing, the home or caring for the kids and all of that kind of thing. There's a ton of work in that.
Yes.
But that balance is still not there, because you still hear this. Where's your kids? My husband's babysitting.
Thank you.
You ever hear my wife is babysitting?
Thank you.
Right? Yeah. His mom is babysitting. No. You don't hear that. And you still see, if you watch commercials, I don't watch a lot of TV, but you still see it's mostly a woman behind the vacuum.
Yeah. You're right. Or Swiffer or Duster or whatever. Right. And the man behind the steering wheel of a sports car. And
exactly. And the salaries still, and I work with people, medical doctors and so forth, and still the female salary is lower. And then minority
female,
that's even lower.
It's even lower. It's male, and then 1/10 female, and then minority, indigenous cultures. Still there, it's not balanced, and it's grossly unfair. It's like, oh my goodness, is it Viola Davis? I just watched a video.
I love her.
I was just watching a video of her. She's an Oscar winner, a Tony winner, an Emmy winner. And she's up on the same par with Meryl Streep and all of these famous actresses. But she's like, I have to still pay my dues. And I only have a fraction of the money that these people have tapped into. And it's like, it's disgusting as an industry, well, as a society, that your value is based upon either your gender, your color, and because I'm not a straight white male, I could really go off topic here, but it was a very powerful video to watch. And I was like, because for me, sometimes I feel like I'm ignorant to things I'm not aware of, because we assume and we have assumptions, and it's like, oh my gosh. And she's such a gifted person. And she's amazing. And she's like, I am top bill. I am the first person on here. And yet she's like, I don't have a fraction of the bag that they have. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. But just like, oh my gosh. And I hope and I do feel, I don't hope, I know that this will start to break down, and that things will, that's our Mars Southern accent kicking in, will start to be more balanced and fair, and people should be compensated for their skills and their talents, and an appropriate energetic exchange, not because I'm a white male. So
oh no, we think we get all those projections. I watched her in the Woman King. How perfect is that to express?
That's what they put up that thing, and she's like, I am top bill here. Hello.
Yeah, she's the star. Absolutely. Yeah. No,
she's phenomenally talented.
Yeah.
Viola, you get that bag of money.
We're behind you, Viola. We've got you. Yeah. And that is changed. The Pink Starlights have you, Viola. That's part of their big, to bring that through and to really balance, because, even in career. So this is my career. I don't necessarily think of it as work, but it's my job in a sense, or it's my purpose to get the messages out there, to help others, to let people know this is an option, and a really good option to help them, it's complementary. Hypnosis is complementary to everything. But I am, I have to run this as a business. And it's funny, sometimes when I teach, the women in my training, some of them will be like, say that again. Yes, it's okay to make money. It's okay that this is a business. I need to make money or I can't have a business.
It's so
And
true.
some of them will get mad at me and say, well, you're just about money. And it's like, no, I'm teaching you that this is a business. And if you don't, you know, and they'll usually not need to make any money because they already have,
Yeah.
how is that
But
money coming in, right? They have that support.
But the thing is that there needs to be an even energetic exchange for the services in
Exactly.
which you're providing. So
Yep.
there is, I mean, think about even for you, all of the trainings, all of the
Yeah.
certifications, all the uproot in your life, how
Mm-hmm.
much money and time and energy went into the
Yeah.
skills that you currently have. And to be like, it's free. No,
Right. Right.
no, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's and the males in my field, oh my goodness. When I brought this to
Yeah.
some of them and they were like, well, who cares about fertility? And I said, I don't
Who
know, maybe half
cares?
the population that's female. They didn't think it was who cares about that? It's no big deal until I started really rolling with it. And then the men were like, oh, I wish I would have, and nothing against men or
Yeah.
women, or
No,
it's
of course
just a
not.
reality that we can, go different ways. But then it was ego, right? Then it was like, well, she has an ego. Well, we all have an ego.
Yeah.
We need it, or we wouldn't bother
Yeah.
getting out of bed in the morning. But to put something forth, you
Hmm.
need that masculine energy
Hmm.
or that. And I try to do that I was telling one of my clients the other day, I try to hold divine masculine and divine sacred, what did I say? Divine feminine and sacred masculine,
Ooh,
and
I like that.
model that
Hmm.
for them, because most of them are going to be in, they're entertainers or they're attorneys or they're
Yeah,
doctors, or whatever they do, they are having to really pull that energy through, which
of
is
course.
not particularly
Yeah.
conducive to fertility. And so I'm very aware of that. I mean, I understand what fits into the, male, female, and how that is perceived and
Yeah.
and interpreted. But it's interesting, like to me, I just to step back and see the differences in how people are, you know, received.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
because this is such a feminine, but it's huge and it's necessary, and women are important. And I do work with women and men, and it is a
Hmm.
balance, but predominantly women,
Yeah.
and it's needed.
We're bringing, like, I mean, people don't realize how sacred it is to have a child and to actually to bring a child to full term and to birth a child. I mean, there are high mortality, can't say the word, mortality, thank you, rates, sorry. With people experiencing pregnancy loss and or death while they're giving birth. Like, it's
Mhm.
like, because people just, and it is an interesting thing. Like, you don't realize how many people have had miscarriages and not able to bring babies in. It's a much bigger issue than I think a lot of people actually realize and put a finger on
For
it, because
sure.
if it's not present in their day to day, then it's like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. Like,
Yeah.
but it is a big deal. And the fact that you're able to, help people to bring that soul baby in that they know that is out there for them is such
Mhm.
a beautiful thing. And it's like, and like you said, that mother and that father has a purpose to bring in that child.
Yeah.
They serve part of that divine mission to move, consciousness and society further, and that's a big deal.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, it is. It's so
Yeah.
important. And we just have to, yeah, we have to have that balance. And
Oh,
I do put infertility. I don't like to call it that from a hypnotic standpoint. I'd
yeah.
rather talk about fertility, but I do put it on level with catastrophic illness,
Yes.
catastrophic diagnosis, and
Yes.
sometimes maybe even worse, because if someone gets diagnosed with, serious cancer or a terminal,
Mm,
people say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And
yes.
when somebody talks about their fertility
It's like,
experiences, like miscarried 5 times or whatever, it's this insensitivity and this, well, I
yeah.
guess that's God's way of telling you you're not supposed to have children. I'm like, are you going to go to somebody with this catastrophic cancer diagnosis and say, oh, well, I guess God just doesn't
God's
want you to live?
way. You called that in, didn't you?
Yeah,
But that's a really
exactly.
good point of view, because you're right. I do have a family member who currently just received in November catastrophic cancer diagnosis, stage 4 cancer. And it is very much a all hands on deck. all
Mhm.
love, all support. But then I have another family member that had a miscarriage. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it is, it's a
Yeah.
whole, it's society. I don't feel that we speak enough about it to really sympathize with it and to really, because I think because it's not seen,
Right.
it's like you can't really put an emotion to it,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see how that's also going to evolve, because I do feel like people are becoming more and more comfortable talking about their rainbow children and their like with you, you've had clients have come to 9 failed IVF trials, probably multiple miscarriages, and now brought through this baby, and that's years
Oh,
of
yeah.
trauma and sadness and
Oh, yeah.
frustration, and oh, it's a lot.
And grief. And, we're
Grief,
shamed
yeah.
for grief and we're
Yes.
allowed like 3 days for grief. And I have a colleague, she's amazing. She wrote a book, The Alchemy of Grief, I think it's called.
Mm.
And she's a Jungian psychologist or depth psychologist.
Hmm.
And the way she wrote this is just fabulous, and gets into grief. And she's very divine feminine.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, that balance of divine feminine,
Yeah.
sacred masculine, and how, because nobody even allows people that are dealing with infertility to have grief,
It's so
or
true.
they're shutting them down, or they're giving them platitudes, or
Hmm.
um, sometimes they're blaming them. It's and to get pregnant, or to need or want to get pregnant, that's biological, that's, and it's spiritual,
Yeah.
or I'll call it biology and destiny, that balance of, I know there's a baby there. I feel like I'm supposed to have a
Yes.
baby. I have this sense of a baby. And then I do have this clock ticking,
Yeah.
because that is, that's for evolution, right? That's
Yeah.
for us to procreate and to survive. We have to do those things,
Yeah.
or the species is gone. So you're getting a double whammy. You're getting nature saying, hey, we got to get a baby here.
Yeah.
And you're getting this spiritual connection, or this
Yeah.
beyond sort of the everyday world connection.
That is so true that you brought up that people really don't have the space to grieve the way in which we should be able to. It's just very like, okay, here's your one bereavement day
Yeah.
because your aunt passed, and it's like,
Yeah.
my aunt was my best
Yeah.
friend, like, you
Right.
know, and we
Right.
don't,
And don't
yeah,
cry,
don't cry, suck it up, keep
yeah,
moving.
we think we're comforting the person, but we're like, don't cry, don't cry. And it's like, no. And that's one of the big things that I bring through in my work
Yeah.
is people will apologize to me for crying, and they'll
Oh,
come on and they'll be crying. And I'm so sorry, Lindsey, I'm so sorry. And it's like, no, that's what you do here.
yeah.
I'm holding this space for that.
Hmm.
You cry all you want, and you can yell if you want. I don't take it personally, and women aren't really allowed to be
They're
angry.
not, or to
And so
have
I'm like,
rage, or
yeah,
to be like,
no,
listen. Yeah. And it's
yeah,
it's interesting how people almost hold their inability to grieve as a badge of honor. Like
yeah,
I know a doctor that I work with, and their parent passed away, and they were back to work the next day, and it's like, no, you need to take some time off. Like you
yeah,
need, like whatever. And it's like, no, I'm here, and no one needs to take off time. And it was like,
yeah.
okay, well, we'll revisit that when that pops back up.
Well, and the fear to be with yourself, or to be alone, or to
Ooh.
be with the pain, right? Because people will talk about, well, I need the distraction. And it's like, well,
Oh,
maybe you need
yes.
to sit with that pain
Yeah.
um and process in whatever way that is. At least take a day, go walk in nature, or be mindful, or something.
Yeah.
But people, you see that with the noise in society, which is another thing the babies are wanting, the pink starlights are wanting to help with, is constant noise, constant phone, constant
Yes.
something, TV.
Yeah.
Now people have,
Constant stimulation.
yeah, yeah,
Yes. That is so interesting. The pink starlights, thank you. Because I really feel like, and this is so funny. In the past couple of weeks, I'm like, I cannot tolerate all of this noise.
yeah.
And I
Mhm.
and I was like, and I even, this is so silly. Maybe the pink starlights were with me. Just the other day, I was in an elevator, and I was like, I just love how quiet this is. Like, and I got out, one of the hotels we stayed at was a former board of education. It was a beautiful building. It was very quiet.
Oh, yeah,
And I was like, I love how quiet this is.
yeah,
And I just felt such peace inside. It's something that I'm never really like, because I'm someone that I'm always like, "Da, da, 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 da."
yeah,
But in this honestly, in this
yeah.
past
Oh,
week
yeah.
alone, I'm like, wow, But you're right. It's like this inner peace, and we just need this stillness and this quiet and this. We don't always need to have a zzz. It feels like a zzz, like
Oh,
too much.
absolutely. And if you can't sit with quiet, that's where you need to start looking at doing some healing work,
Yeah.
because even if it's for 5 minutes, but
Yeah.
you see people that they just always have, they fall asleep to the TV, they wake up
Yes.
to it, they have something going all
Yeah.
the time. And that blocks spirit from getting through, or pink
Absolutely.
starlights, or any thoughts or creativity, blocks it all.
For a lot of people, like how they start listening to divine is by being in stillness.
Hmm.
And then you're getting your divine aligned, inspired action to take, because you get that nugget of, hey, I've sit in here in my space and I'm in stillness. And like you said, you could be just taking a walk. And
Hmm.
then you're like, oh yeah, I got this.
Yeah. And I think, spirit has to try and crack through in showers.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? And maybe vacuuming keeps coming up today, but
Oh, for me, it's
because
mopping. Whenever I
mopping,
mop,
there's
I'm
something
always like,
right. Well, mopping though, for the average person, they could have music or TV on.
yeah,
Whereas if you're vacuuming,
you can't
well, now
hear.
you got ear pods, but or
Yeah.
what do they call them? I don't use them, but if that's like the time that you're in the shower, it's kind of hard to
Yeah,
listen or do other things or watch TV. And when
that's
you're
so true.
vacuuming, and yeah, for me, I do stuff, laundry. They downloaded the Pink Starlights, downloaded that whole book while I was trying to do laundry. And I'm like, could you hold off? I just want to fold this stuff before it gets wrinkled. And then I just literally had to run, get a pad of paper, bring it
Yeah.
back to my washing machine,
And
because they kept dropping
oh my
bullet
gosh,
points to
I
me.
love
And I'm
that.
like, oh my goodness. But that's because I wasn't listening to or trying to watch Netflix,
Yeah.
the whole time while I was doing my
Yeah.
laundry. You know what
I
I
love
mean? So
that.
there's space for that. And if we ask for it, we'll get it. Like if we
Yes.
want information, or we're looking for signs and we ask for it,
Mm,
we will get it. And then
that's
it's
so
paying
true.
attention. Is that you ask for a sign, and then let's say, I don't know, an owl lands on your front porch. That's a sign. But if you go, oh, well, it's just an owl landing on my front porch, and that's not a sign. And then you'll get another sign, but you have to listen. You have to at least be
Yeah.
willing to consider that owls don't tend to land on front porches.
No, they don't.
Um, so even if it's on your roof, it's a sign. But if it happens to show up on your front porch, it's trying to be a really loud sign from the
Yeah,
universe. But we have to be willing to be open to it.
that is so true. So, as we wrap up this podcast, anything actually, what is the best way for someone to get in touch with you? Is it go to your website?
Yeah, that's probably the easiest, which is hypnofertility.com.
Okay, I'll make sure to
If
post that. Go ahead.
Yeah, if they're interested in this pink starlight specifically,
Yeah.
they have their own pinkstarlights.com.
Oh, do they really? Okay, I'll make sure to link both. So
Of
Pink
course they do.
Star.
It goes to my website, but it's
Okay,
more direct. If you want pink
sure.
starlights, you don't have to look for them. You just go to
Oh my gosh, I love
pinkstarlights.com,
it.
and
You're
there's
like,
their page that they had me do, and I just had to redo it, and so on and so forth.
I love that. And then one more question before we wrap this up. If any piece of advice that you may have for someone that is, I'm going to spin this with going through an awakening process, because I do feel like a lot of people right now are
Right.
going with an awakening process. Any piece of advice that you can provide for a listener that maybe is going through an awakening process, and maybe they're not connected to any type of spiritual realm or anything like that? Any piece of advice you can impart?
Well, I will say, and this is just experiencing this with
Sure.
a few people recently, because a lot of people did start awakenings with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And but you don't want to get sucked into fear. If you're
Oh,
scared, really scared, this is not, healthy for your awakening. You want to
yeah.
have some hope, you want to have some insight, some awe,
Yeah.
some magic to it. There's certainly things that are, distressing out
Mm,
there, but for a spiritual awakening, and for bringing in, your baby, or even just having the life that you desire, is
yeah.
to look for credible sources, because nowadays anything is on the internet.
Yes.
And so people like you do these podcasts, and you bring in certain people that are not just randomly dropped out of,
No.
unless they're randomly dropped and then it works. But you're looking through that. You're discerning.
Yeah.
So be discerning. I always liked Wayne Dyer, Deepak
Yes.
Chopra. There's lots of those folks, Carolyn Mace,
Yes. Both.
that they're
Yes.
that they are legitimate
Mm-hmm.
and very helpful for
Mm-hmm.
people, as opposed to just finding a random person online because, oh my gosh, some of the really fear-based stuff. And you have to remember, it's like we project onto people.
Yeah.
And so someone who's coming out of fear or who has not done their work, this is usually a big problem, is going to project that all over you.
Yeah.
So be discerning as to who you're listening to or what you feel drawn to.
That is really good advice, because I have seen online there's a lot of fear mongering, and there's a lot of, it doesn't it, but people do get attracted because it's like they're addicted to that kind of feeling. It's
Yeah,
very interesting. I like that. Trust, use
right.
your discernment, and go with, like you're saying, established, spiritual healers like Wayne Dwyer, like you said, Carolyn Mace, like they're amazing. There's plenty of other ones that have, and they're good. They have good, profound books too.
Oh
Or like,
yeah, and there's tons of stuff
yeah,
on YouTube you can
yeah,
listen to for free. You don't have to spend a ton
no,
of money. They have courses and whatnot.
yeah,
Yeah, books and recordings. There's so much there.
definitely.
So yeah, tuning into yeah, you don't want to be terrified. You don't want to
No.
be freaking out. You don't want to be,
Mm-mm.
scared like that.
We always say fear is false expectations appearing real, which goes with your snake and stick analogy.
It does. Exactly. It's perfect. It's perfect. And one more thing I will just
Sure.
throw out really quick is toxic positivity,
Oh
because
my
this
gosh.
drives me bonkers. And it's
Mm,
been, I don't know, my thing. I guess it bothers the pink starlights, but when people are just dismissing you and telling you, well, if that didn't happen, you haven't been thinking positive or, positively enough, or dismissing your feelings. Because I've had people call me and say, you know what, I just spent $50,000 and went through this whole IVF process, and
yeah.
I just had a really bad thought that it's not going to work, and I just ruined it. And they'll call up my office, or they'll be crying, or and it's like, no,
No,
it's okay if
you can
you
have
have,
them
that's
come
how
up.
we are. And if we
Mm-hmm.
have negative thoughts, we just don't want to stay there. It's if you
Right.
get there and then you keep staying there. And so that your awakening or your
Mm-hmm.
spiritual work or any of this should be helping you to navigate that and go be able to, oh, I feel like crap. And if I need a whole day to feel that way, fine, but I'm going to come back up out of it. I can do that. And it doesn't mean it ruined everything. You know what I mean?
That is a very valuable point. Toxic, everything's rainbow and butterflies. Everything has to be
Right.
perfect. You always have to be in this empowered, enlightened state. No, we're having a human experience, and with that human experience, negative thoughts are going to come up, and those are negative thoughts that you may need to dig in a little bit and look
Mhm.
at where's the root cause of this, and then
Yes.
kind of feel into that emotion and then let that go. Sorry, I had a moment there.
Abs- no, it's true, because this really bugs me, because people are
Yep.
blamed for,
Yes.
well, you have cancer because you had bad karma,
Yes. Yeah.
or you just didn't think positively enough, or you're too
Yeah.
negative, or whatever the case is. And certainly energies contribute to our life
Yeah.
experiences, but it's that toxic positivity just drives me nuts. In the self-help world, you see a lot
Mm.
of that. So
Yeah,
that's another thing with
it's like
discernment, right?
amplified law of attraction. And then it's like, no, you did call it. No, my child going missing, I called this into my life. No,
Yeah. Oh,
woman, I did not. Like,
no, not at
like, or
all.
this person being like, you know what I mean? And
Oh yeah,
I know
that's a great
exactly,
example too.
you know
Yes.
what I mean? I know exactly what you're hitting on. And it's like, no. And then it also goes with balance, with the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Like, we do have to have a balance, and that's dark and light. And it needs to
Exactly.
be we need to integrate it and bring it forth together.
Oh,
Very
exactly.
interesting.
The yin yang symbol.
Yes.
There's a little bit of, the black tends to represents the female and the
Yeah.
white, but there's a little black inside the white and a little white inside the black. And it is that we need both pieces, that we
Yeah.
need that in balance. And that is so huge. And if you're feeling
Yeah.
off balance and you're looking for something, it doesn't mean you're going to immediately have that, unbalanced feeling resolved,
No.
but it, you know what I mean? It is that discernment. And
Yeah.
I'm all about signs and synchronicities.
Yeah.
However, they may not fit for you, or the message doesn't fit for you, or just, you know what I mean? So
So true.
yeah.
So true. Because there's some people that may interpret a message as fear-based or negative, and like somebody like myself, I'm like, no, this means that for me, like, because I want to pull in the
Exactly.
positive aspect of it. And the other thing I do want to say to your point is that as spiritual people, we tend to spend a lot of time in our upper chakras and
Yes.
our upper realms. And in order to manifest things into our physical reality, we really need to be grounded into Mother Earth. And that's going within
Yes.
the body, going within the womb, going within, and really, and that's where you find that juicy goodness of being in balance.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
that's the pink starlights thing. I don't want to get into this because we have to wrap up, but
I
they
love
have
those pink
me
starlights.
doing they have me doing an energetic attunement,
Oh,
and they have me using some sacred geometry with it
I
and
love it.
pulling in from I always get this in my as above, so below, as above,
Yes.
so below,
Yes.
right?
Same.
The magician card in the tarot is my favorite card.
Oh,
But it's always that as above, so below. And they
yeah.
actually have ways to pull that through to
Ooh,
help accelerate alignment for
yeah.
people because of the acceleration of the shifts that are occurring right now.
I love
So
that.
you're
As below.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yin and yang, divine feminine, sacred masculine, whatever it
Yeah.
is balance.
I love that. Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. I definitely look forward to connecting with you again. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having, I should say us, Rachel, the Pink Starlights. Thank you.
Thank you, Pink Starlights. Thank you.